speaking. Oh. Hello, Tawa, and good evening, New Zealand.
This is Lynn of Tawa, a character by comedian Jeanette MacDonald who teased us with her exaggerated Kiwi vowels, taking New Zealand to New Zealand. More recently, people like Taika Waititi have taken our accent and used it to charm international audiences, playing on its natural quirkiness.
Sounds like you had a pretty special and intimate relationship with this hammer, and that losing it was almost comparable to losing a loved one.
It's a nice way of putting it.
I can't wait for Kiwis to hear that character, all the in-jokes for Aussies and Kiwis, all the spaceships in the film are, named after Holdens.
In real life, we're not always so quick to laugh. Politicians like Cullen Clark and Simon Bridges have been criticised by the public for the way they talk, something actual language experts find bizarre given our accent's history.
I, Simon Joseph Bridges, swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law, so help me God.
So what is that history? Why do we talk the way we do? And what will we sound like in the future? Aotearoa was colonised later than places like Australia or the United States, and our English is a little newer. Because of this, we have much better records of who those early settlers were and, importantly, what they sounded like. New Zealand's accent timeline therefore gets a lot of international attention from experts, as it's one of the only places where the English accent can actually be traced from its inception. A lot of our understanding comes from the enterprising efforts of the New Zealand Broadcasting Service mobile unit, who went around recording Kiwis in the mid-40s.
They had the equipment that had been used in the war, where people had sent messages home to their families from, the various battlefields. And so they had this equipment already, and they brought it back to New Zealand and decided to use it for collecting material in New Zealand.
Some of the interviewees were born in the mid-1800s, like Susan Maitland, who was over 100 years old when interviewed. And these Kiwis tended to sound like their immigrant parents, usually Scottish, English, or Irish. The mixing of these accents began to have an effect though, and, in people born in the 1870s onwards, something distinct from anywhere in the homeland of English could be heard emerging.
When Aunt Daisy got down to work again, she was ready to give Weekly Review some of her reactions to life abroad.
Well, good morning, everybody. Here I am home again, back again in New Zealand, which is the very easiest country in the world to live in and work in at the present time, I can assure you of that. Well, I've a very happy...
Early broadcasters were all required to have the cultivated accent of the BBC, but by the mid-1900s, broadcasters like Aunt Daisy, known as New Zealand's First Lady of Radio, began to have a detectable hint of Kiwi coming through.
So, kia ora, cheerio, everybody.
As a large chunk of immigrants came from southeast England, one of those early changes might have been influenced by the accents of London, possibly even the infamous Cockney accent. If you look at where vowel sounds are made in the mouth, the eh vowel in a word like pat is usually made in the bottom front corner of the mouth, but when Kiwis speak, it's pronounced like the higher eh vowel and sounds like pet to listeners from other countries. This leads to a chain reaction, as if pat pushes up to sound like pet, then pet is pushed up even further to sound like pit. These so-called rising front vowels are iconic parts of our accent.
From our recordings, we would say the people born in the, say, late 1870s, 1880s, they sound like old New Zealanders. They don't sound Irish or Scottish or Cornish. And so it clearly has developed in a period of about 20 years, I would say.
Over in Australia, something similar was happening, but as time went on, they continued the chain reaction by pushing pit further up to sound like Pete. Meanwhile, back in Aotearoa, we actually did something different with the I vowel and moved it back in our mouths so pit becomes put. That's how we get Aussie feesh and the Kiwi chups. Once they caught on, Great Britain wasn't happy about these changes and made attempts to actively reshape it.
I mean, the whole notion of the standard was British, And they had, recordings of King George V and Queen Mary, which were given, phonographic recordings given to schools all over New Zealand, so the children would listen to them, giving their message to children of the empire, and then try and copy them, which is extraordinary.
This was probably always doomed though, not just because of the distance, but because English in New Zealand was making contact with something that had been there a lot longer, te reo Maori.
And it's really interesting in New Zealand because, people were, bilingual initially when they came to New Zealand. Most European settlers did learn to speak Māori pretty well when they first came. There was a sort of big shift, pretty much shortly after the treaty.
As European migration increased following Te Tiriti, bilingualism sadly died down. But, particularly because of the recent revitalisation efforts, the interaction of English and te reo Māori continues to be a unique point of difference for New Zealand English.
I think young people are becoming really aware of the historical context of how things happened, and as they do that, they're probably also getting excited about not being just another monolingual English-speaking place, right?
In Auckland, high immigration and language contact are of huge interest to researchers. Many of the suburbs don't have an ethnic majority. One example actually looks at the most used word in the English language, the. There are two ways of using this word, the and the, and without realizing it, many of us follow the rule that determines which one to use. If the word that follows starts with a consonant, we say the, but if the word starts with a vowel, we say the. It's the kind of rule that many of us picked up from our environment and have never consciously thought about. But if you're learning English as a second language, it's something that actively needs to be taught. Researchers in Auckland, however, found that the rule is changing, and the is being preferred even when the rule calls for a the. In South Auckland, which has had a lot of immigration in the 60s and 70s, the change is almost universal. In Mount Roskill, which has undergone a lot of recent immigration, the change is on the clear rise. In largely Pakeha Titirangi, the change is much slower, but observable in some young people.
And this is something we do find with language contact, is you do get these kinds of sort of weird exceptions to the rule. It's the except when it's before a vowel, and so on and so forth. These exception type things to a rule, those tend to get swept away. People realise that communicatively they're not really that important. They're usually some kind of artifact of, something historical.
And before anyone bemoans the death of proper English, this is what happens to languages. And in the 200 plus years of New Zealand English, it's no different from the hundreds of other subtle changes that we don't realise we've made. In fact, similar research is seeing the exact same change in London. Auckland is also doing interesting things with our iconic vowel sounds, like the rising front vowels we talked about before.
But what we're finding is that we've got these younger speakers in Mount Roskill in particular, which is the place that is most diverse and has seen the most recent migration, who his bat or cat vowel, instead of going up to bet, is actually moving back. It's moving down and in the centre, so it's becoming more of a bat or a cat.
Further research is starting to look at whether these changes are being seen elsewhere in the country.
As the bus arrives at Mechanics Bay, Auckland, a flight stewardess on duty for the Tasman Empire Airways begins her working day.
The chief point of agreement, one in which every woman would like to take a part, is that we would like to get the world back to a normal, happy life.
Hey, listen! Don't forget to take Dad for a run, eh? Oh, jeez, this is worse than when I was Miss Tawa Aluminium Extrusions.
While our accent started out as a thorn in the side of the empire, it's grown into something we're proud of, and as it continues to evolve, we should continue to embrace it. The rest of the world certainly is.